Welcome to Old Classic Car, and here, lesser known Brits. British cars of the late 1940s, 1950s and 1960s that you don't see all that often. And to begin with, we head down to the NEC Classic Car Show, and this, the wonderful Le Mans monocar. Just a few of these were built between 1946 and 1951. You may well have seen this one already in the NEC video that I did this year, 2022. But it was such a great car, I just had to include it in this video collection as well. Next up, going back a few years to a classic car show I went to, this used to be a regular DKX 820. This is an Ashley 750, one of the sort of late 1950s fiberglass bodies that you could buy and install on a regular road-going car chassis, in this case based on the Austin 7. Next up, a rear three-quarter view of Wales's finest. This is the circa 1966 Gilberns GT. As I said at the opening of this particular video, this is all British cars that you just don't see quite as often as maybe your mainstream Austins, Morrises, Fords and so on. And Gilberns you certainly don't see too often. Now here is a real rarity. This, registration NLD412 and seen down at Gaydon, the British Motor Museum at Gaydon, is the Allard P2 Safari. What an incredible looking old car that is. I absolutely love that. The quality is just incredible. There's a review of the same car. 1953 is the build date, and it's powered by a 5.4 litre V8 engine. What an incredible looking car that is. Carrying on with these lesser known Brits, here we have a Bristol. I had to look this one up because I'm not too well up on these, and this I think is the Bristol 411. These were built from 69 to 1976, powered by the Chrysler V8, and in all 287 of these were built. This is in the overflow car park at Cholmondeley Castle a few years back. And also at Cholmondeley we got a rear view of an Ashley. This is the Ashley 1172 body shell, a bit like the Ashley 750 we saw before. You'd buy a body shell, find the chassis and bolt them together. I'm not quite sure what running gear this one's on. Usually they were powered by Ford Pop engines. There's a great looking car here. This was at the NEC in 2022, 933 WJH. That's the Cooper T24/25, dating to 1953. That was powered by a 2 litre 6-cylinder Bristol engine. What a fantastic looking little car that is too. Another road going car now, back to road cars, and here we have a Singer, the Singer Roadster. The various versions of this were produced. RGO 108 is a Singer 4AD Roadster dating to 1955. There's a very smart Jaguar alongside, looks like a 420G. Hillman Imp powered, fiberglass bodied. This is a circa 1970 or 71 probably Clan Crusader. Here's a classic car you very rarely see, a Ginetta CPH 15H. That's a Ginetta G15 of about 1969 or just about 1970 possibly. Really stylish little car. This is the AC 2 litre, very much a coach-built car in the sort of the pre-war style of construction, but a post-war car from the early 1950s, PPK 332. Carrying on these lesser known Brits, here we have the Morris 6. The eagle-eyed will spot the Morris Oxford Demo body shell, but a much longer front end on it to accommodate a 6-cylinder engine. You very rarely see these now. JWV 833, this one from July 1953. Back to Ginetta and the NEC Classic Car Show. We've got HTL 1T. This is a stunning looking Ginetta G10. This has a 4.7 litre V8 engine. I'm assuming that's a fiberglass body, but that must go like stink. That's a lovely, lovely car, that is. Now down to Gaydon, the British Motor Museum and their reserve collection. Hiding away in there is this, the Road Rover. This is the Series 2 prototype, dating to about 1958. Rover at the time were thinking of adding to the Land Rover range with a more road-oriented car. Of course, they've come up with the Range Rover in later years. Now, LVK 959, that's an Alvis TA14 dating to 1949. Mulliner bodied, and yeah, very much a coach-built car once again. Still with Daimlers, and we have two photos now of one of the so-called Docker Daimlers, inspired by Lady Docker. This is a 3.5 litre Continental Coupe. The coachwork was by Hooper, very, very distinctive lines, incredible looking car. That would stop the clock wherever you parked it. And there's a rear view, huge car, only 2 doors of course. Really, really nice. I like the fins, that was very much a thing of the late 1950s of course. What an incredible car that is. Look at the badge on the rear bumper as well, very stylish. Staying with Daimler, at first glance we've got a Daimler Conquest, but RGW868, a London registration. That's a Conquest drop head coupe, dating to 1955. There's a standard Conquest that it looks like alongside. This was on the Daimler Lanchester Owners Club stand, but the drop head coupe is very rare indeed. And talking about rare, this is the only one of these I've ever seen, registration 192XUM. I did actually photograph this a while back, and it was registered 566 CPC. This is an Astra Utility built by British Anzani. Clearly someone's robbed the registration number off it and given it this age-related number instead, which is a shame. Now, two photos of MTJ300 sporting a very nice 1952 Rally Monte Carlo plate. That's a Jowett Jupiter, bodied by Farr, F-A-R-R. Very interesting little car. We'll see a standard Jupiter a bit later on in this collection, but this is the Farr-bodied car. Now, Lanchester, related to Daimler of course, and this is the Lanchester LD10. This is a Briggs-bodied car, 4-door saloon. Briggs also did Ford bodywork at the time, and you can see some similarities with the side of this car and the Prefect. So this is the Briggs-bodied LD10, HFM 156, and there's a rear view of a Barker-bodied LD10. Very different car. The previous one was all steel bodywork. This one is steel over an ash frame, HAM 845. This one that you're looking at here is a much more difficult car to restore because of that ash framework. Interesting one here. This is the Austin A40 Sport. It's based on the Devon or maybe the Somerset running gear, the 1200 pre-B series BMC engine. It's pepped up a little bit with twin carburetors and an alley body produced by Jensen, if memory serves. Sporty looking little car, but not all that fast, I wouldn't have thought. To the auction area, the NEC, the National Exhibition Centre, where there's a huge classic car show every year, and LRR 267 is a Healey Silverstone dating to 1950. Very sporty British car. You could drive to the circuit, have a race or two, and then drive back home again. And also sporty and very unusual, even possibly even rarer than the Healey Silverstone, is this. This is the Turner GT8. A little Fairthorpe alongside, but yeah, this is the Turner. The only one of these I've ever seen as well. 8 registration. So what's that, about 1969 or 1970? Now, to the Red Room at the Haynes Motor Museum, and we have JDA 555. This is also a Turner. This is a Lea-Francis powered Turner. First registered in March of 1951. Bit of a sports racer again. That grille looks like it may have been borrowed from the Morris Minor. Now over to Cholmondeley Castle, the classic car show that used to take place there. We've got UNP5F. That's a Bond Equipe or Equipe, a 2-litre car dating to May of 1968. It's very much Herald based. You can see the Herald bonnet catches on the side there. Lovely old Jaguar here. This is a Jaguar Mark V KNX 374. Carrying on with these slightly more obscure British cars, we have this. Now, what do we have here? A Bond minicar, the Mark C family model. And the very helpful information in the screen tells us that it dates to 1955, registration OCG7. These are a very popular choice for motorists on a budget in the sort of late 40s, 1950s and so on. Although the Mini, when it came out, tended to kill off many of these little cars. Now, MLP 117, a very different car. This is an Allard K2 from 1951. Allard set up by Sidney Allard, racing driver, hill climber and so on. And yeah, these were usually powered by a big side valve Ford V8 engine. A nice Alvis next, Ye645. That's an Alvis TE21, and this particular car dates to 1964. Next up in the lesser known Brits we have another Gilbern. This is a J-Reg Gilbern Invader, and it is the estate version, or the shooting brake version. Very rare car indeed, fiberglass bodied, Ford powered. Yeah, I haven't seen this one in quite a while. This was down at Malvern, if I remember correctly, quite a few years ago now. A nice car. And equally nice is this NY06. This is a rarity. This is an Allard Palm Beach. These were only built from 1952 to 1954. Console 4-cylinder engine, or later you had the option of the 6-cylinder Ford Zephyr engine under that bonnet. Many louvers in the bonnet, so I'm guessing the larger engine car. Now, we saw this over in Oswestry a few years ago, HSJ345, another coach-built post-war British car. This is the Lea-Francis 14 Saloon, 14 horsepower. There we go, here's the Jowett Jupiter that I was talking about before. We saw that rare Farr-bodied car a few minutes ago, and this is the standard Jowett-bodied Jupiter. Very, very distinctive car indeed. Green one alongside as well. The Morris Minor in the background and an Austin A35. Now occasionally you see PA Vauxhalls at classic car shows now, but this is the Friary-bodied Vauxhall Velox PADX Estate. Incredibly rare car. Now I don't know how common they were back in the day, but now they are extremely thin on the ground. LHP 307F. This was a concept put forward by Sir William Lyons, no less, to rebody and simplify the looks of the Daimler SP250, the Dart, the so-called Dart. This car dates to 1963, the SP252 it was called, but it never went beyond this prototype, sadly. Now down to the mini celebrations a few years ago down at Gaydon, and there was a collection of all sorts of minis and mini-based cars, including this, a 1966 Unipower GT with a mini, presumably a Cooper engine bolted in the back. Looks like a lot of fun, fiberglass body. Now this is a real rarity, I thought I'd just throw in a van. This is the Leyland 15, but many may remember this as originally being the standard Atlas van. The early ones had the 948cc engine and wouldn't pull the skin off a rice pudding. But this is the slightly later Leyland badge version, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. And back to Lea-Francis, that's one of those makers that you hardly ever hear of now. But this is a head-on view of another one of those post-war Lea-Francis 14s, HVN 115. Next up, the 3633MX, that is a 1962 Tornado Talisman race car. It was certainly interesting getting all these photographs together. Half these cars I couldn't remember what they were either, so I had to look them up. That's the nature of the beast when you're collecting photos of more obscure cars. Now down to Prescott for one of the VSCC hill climb meets, and parked up in the car park was this glorious AC. This is an AC Ace, registered 220 ppc, and alongside it is a replica of an early Porsche. But yeah, these ACs are beautiful looking cars. We'll see one of the fixed head Seekers a bit later on. YCE 755, this is a Peerless GT, a 2-litre car, dating to 1961. There's an oddball one, 171 APK. This is an Armstrong-Siddeley Sapphire 236, a 6-cylinder car. There was also the 234, which looked very similar and that had a 4-cylinder engine, but this is the 6-cylinder 236. You don't see many of these around at all now. And a nice Triumph Herald behind it. Back to Bonds again, and you can see by the door that these are Herald based. That's a Herald door basically, but with a different frame at the top to accommodate that swoopy roof line. But yeah, this particular car dates to 1965. Built by Bond, of course, 1147cc Triumph Herald engine. There's a rear view, better showing that swoopy roofline. It doesn't appear that these have an opening boot, so unless that rear window opens, which I don't think it does, you must have to access the boot area via the rear seats. Let me know in the comments if you owned one of these Bond Equipes and can tell me for sure. Is it Equipe or is it Equipe? Anyway, back down to Gaydon and the British Motor Museum, we have KWD 348D. This is a concept car, a prototype, MG, dating to 1966, consisted of a couple of mini subframes and a body by Pininfarina. This was an idea to produce a sporty little two-seater based on mini running gear, but didn't really proceed beyond that. And here, a 1965 Bentley S3 Continental, bodied by Mulliner Park Ward. Here we are, a Cholmondeley Castle, like I say, the classic car show there, held for many years. We've got HDF 46, that's a Bristol 400 of 1948. Quite a sudden colour, but a very, very stylish car, very aerodynamic, in keeping with their aircraft and the aviation background. And here we are on the Armstrong-Siddeley club stand, and in the foreground we have the Armstrong-Siddeley Whitley Saloon. Very smart car indeed. Again, construction very sort of coach built, you know, very similar to some of the pre-war cars, but just updated for the more modern era. Now, a fiberglass bodied Reliant. This is a Sabre, the Sabre 4. We've seen the Sabre 6s in a few of these collections already, but this is a Reliant Sabre 4, and it's got a 1703cc 4-cylinder Ford engine. That body shell can trace its way all the way back to the Ashley 1172. Now this is the Austin A40, but not any old Austin A40. This is the A40 Dorset, the two-door equivalent to the four-door Austin A40 Devon. And this was only made for a year or two before they stopped production, and they are very, very rare now. And carrying on with super rare cars and very distinctive British cars, we have this YBT 187J. This is a Marcos Mantis. I haven't seen this for years, so whether it's still in the area or not, I don't know. It shows up as being sawn, i.e. off-road, 2.5 litre engine. Now, originally these were designed with the 2.5 Triumph PI fuel-injected engine in mind, so I'm guessing that that is probably the engine under these swoopy lines of the Marcos Mantis. What an incredible car that is. If you know any more about this particular car, please pop a note into the comments. It's always interesting to read your thoughts on some of the cars that feature in these videos. There's a nice car here, a post-war Lagonda NUV924. That's a drop-head coupe Lagonda, dating to 1952. Perfect for a bright, sunny day and a classic car show. Next up in this collection of lesser-known Brits is a one-off prototype Rover VAC905. That's the Rover T3 gas turbine coupe. Rover produced several one-off cars when they were experimenting with gas turbine propulsion in the late 50s and 1960s, but ultimately it came to nothing apart from a few Le Mans races. And here a Ginetta. Now, which model of Ginetta do we have here? I have a feeling it's a G4. This was possibly at the Gold Cup at Alton Park. I think this photo was taken, so I think it's a Ginetta G4, but if I've got that wrong, please let me know. Okay, next up we have here the Peel P50. Now these are being reproduced, I believe, so is this an original car or is it one of the later reproductions? I'm not quite sure, but whatever. This one was for sale, and from what I can tell they seem to go for incredible amounts of money. Here's a handsome machine, very nice GT. This dates to about 1964. It's the Gordon Keeble. These were built from 1964 through to 67 and were powered by a big Chevrolet V8 engine. What a stunning bit of kit that is. A nice old Bristol alongside as well. There's an oddball car down at Gaydon. This is the Austin Ant Utility. This was a prototype put forward by BMC designers in about 1968 or thereabout, but that didn't proceed any further. There's a Moke alongside. Head-on view now of a very interesting looking Alvis HYS 615. This is the Alvis TB14 of 1950, body by AP Metalcraft of Coventry, apparently. There's a very intriguing looking woodie alongside as well. BRK 687H. This is a Bristol 411 demonstrating where the spare wheel is stored. That's very clever indeed. Down to Malvern for the Classic Car Show in 2022, and this, not just a standard Vanguard, but the Vanguard 6, the 6-cylinder version of the Vignale Vanguard, which itself was a slightly reworked version of the Phase 3. These cars were available with either the 4-pot or the 6-pot engine. A mighty Daimler here. This is the Daimler Majestic. This is a 3.8 litre 6-cylinder car dating to 1961. If that wasn't enough, the 3.8, then you could buy this, the magnificent Daimler Majestic Major. This had a 4.5 litre V8 engine designed by Edward Turner. You can see those grills with a V set into them on the front there, just next to the headlights. That tells us that this is the V8 powered Majestic Major, as opposed to the 6-cylinder Majestic. Now, back to Allard's again, ENT 235, showing off its side valve V8 engine there. Many louvers in the bonnet to try and deal with the heat. Back down to Malvern on the Frisky Sport KSK 897, funny little three-wheeler, very neat indeed. There's usually a good turnout of these at the big NEC Classic Car Show every year. There's several there this year. Great little car. Talking of the NEC, 7832PJ, that's where we find this 1963 Elva Courier. It's a Mark III GT race car. Elva was a play on words, French for Elle va, she goes. And that's how they came up with the name Elva, E-L-V-A. Another wonderful post-war Lagonda here. This is a 2.6 litre saloon dating to, I think it's 1952. This particular car. What a glorious shaped car that is. Absolutely fantastic. Carrying on with this theme of lesser known Brits, we have 1848 TJ. This is a Falcon Caribbean, another one of the Ford popped base specials. Like I say, fiberglass body, throw the original pop body away and bolt down your body of choice onto it. Fiberglass. We've got some Bellamy wheels there. Talking of oddball cars, this is the Mini Gem. This was also seen at the Mini Celebration in 2019 down at the British Motor Museum. And back down to Worcestershire, Malvern to be precise, and NFO 143. This is a Lanchester Leda 14 drophead, dating to 1953, but when it drove past it sounded remarkably diesel, so I think this particular car has been re-engined. And staying at Malvern, there's that Vanguard 6 alongside, but here we have the Fairthorpe Electron Minor, another home-built car of the late 50s, beginning of the 1960s, but cars such as the Austin Healey Sprite really put paid to a lot of these low-volume, obscure sports cars. Back to Cholmondeley Castle, for sale, according to that sign in the windscreen, we have a Daimler DB18, a very swish car of the early 1950s. Big engine, pre-selected gearbox, very comfortable car. I wonder if this one's still on the road. This was going back a few years, this one. Nice Humber Hawk alongside. And here, the Sunbeam Harrington Le Mans, based on the Sunbeam Alpine, but you can see it's got a fixed roof and a lift-up rear hatch. Very swish indeed. And carrying on that theme, we've got the Harrington Alpine. So no longer a lift-up rear tailgate, we've got this very interestingly hinged boot lid on the Harrington Alpine. Again, a fixed roof based on the Sunbeam Alpine. But what an interesting arrangement that is. I'd never seen that before. So yeah, that was well worth having a close look at. Now, we are down at Dover Transport Museum for this car. This is a circa 1966 Winchester Taxi. That Dover Transport Museum is well worth a visit. There is a separate video all about it on the channel, so if you've not seen that yet, maybe go and have a look when you're finished here. It's a really interesting place. Back to Gaydon, and we've got 617YUA. I don't think that's the original registration. It looks like a reissue, and this is a Triumph Mayflower, one of the very angular Triumphs of the post-war era, the razor edge styling as such they called it. There was this and the larger Renown. The latter, I think, was a slightly happier looking car. Here we've got 166ERA. This is a four-wheeled Barclay. There was the three-wheeled and the four-wheel cars. I think I'd probably go with the four-wheel myself, but yeah, looked like a lot of fun. Carrying on through this collection, about halfway through now, of these British cars, the obscure British cars. We've got 463HWR. This is a 1962 AC Greyhound. Looks like a very original car indeed. Very purposeful, painted wires, very original looking paintwork. Back to taxis again. 4320UG was seen at a classic car meet many years ago now. This is a Beardmore Mk7. Hands up if you know what this is. This is a 1948 Lloyd Roadster. This was a little front-wheel drive car, two-cylinder, two-stroke, built in Grimsby. HGB 17, this is an AC, very similar to the AC 2-litre saloon that we saw before, but this is the AC Buckland Tourer. Very swish indeed. Shades of Jaguar perhaps with that front end styling, but which one came first, I wonder? This is a Swallow Doretti. Very nice car indeed, based on Triumph TR2 running gear. Silly fact, those side strips are from an Austin A40 Devon, of all places. It's one of those useless facts that you pick up when you own an A40 Devon. Tatton Park, or maybe Malvern actually this was, BCW144 is a Jowett Bradford. Looks like a van with added windows. Really nice indeed. These were built in Bradford. And this handsome machine, this two-door coupe, is a Bristol 404. Shades of Aston DB24 perhaps there. Glorious looking car that is. I hope that doesn't upset any Bristol owners by making that reference, but yeah, it's very similar. Now, many years ago down at Weston Park, I spotted this JBZ 100 private registration. This is a TVR Clipper of all things, 5.5 litre engine, V8. It must go like stink, I would have thought. Big wire wheels on it, quite a wide section to deal with all that power. That must be a lot of fun, but where is it now? Now, I mentioned Razor Edge Triumphs before and the Mayflower. This is the bigger Renown. Very handsome looking car indeed. Sort of late 40s, early 1950s. What does it say? 1953. There we go. Very nice indeed. Armstrong-Siddeley, back to those. This was at Cholmondeley Castle Classic Cars Show, and it's an Armstrong-Siddeley Sapphire. Star Sapphire, which was the revised version, had a slightly lower grille, but this is the previous Sapphire model. There's a very bright blue Daimler, SLY819. That's a Daimler Conquest Roadster. This particular car dates to 1955, and there's that drop head you can just see alongside, which we saw before. Back to the Bond Owners Club stand, and according to the information, this is a 1950 Bond minicar, showing off its motorcycle-derived, I think, engine there. Kickstart, so you have to put your foot in through the bonnet to kickstart the engine into life, if I'm right. Walking around the Alton Park paddock, I think this was in 2021, a slightly rainy day, we came across this. This is a GSM Delta. Of the home-built car, very rare car indeed. I like the wraparound windscreen, and those wheels look vaguely familiar, but I can't quite think where, perhaps from a Sprite. Anyway, Here's a nice one. This is a Jensen 541R. You can see the adjustable front radiator opening there, sort of in the open position here for a hot day, but you can adjust that depending on how hot you wanted or needed the engine to run. Very nice indeed, fiberglass bodied, very smart, big old Austin engine under its bonnet. Talking of big bonnets and big engines, we've got NLO 950. This is a 3-litre Lagonda drophead coupe, ex-Peter Ustinov no less. This car dates to 1954. This was at Weston Park quite a few years ago, in the mid-2000s now, which, when you think about it, is quite a while ago now. 442 FON was another car we spotted at a mini celebration at Gaydon in 2019. This is an Austin Mini Mark I beach car from 1961. Interesting little Triumph here. This is a prototype, the Triumph Fury. There was a theory that they may produce a sports car that sat between the Spitfire and the TR range with a 6-cylinder engine, a bit like that in the Vitesse and the GT6. So this was a proposal that they came up with, but didn't really carry on with it. Sadly, I don't think there was the money available. Now, down to the Haynes Motor Museum. Another Turner. This is a Turner 950 Sports. Very neat little car indeed. It's the only one of these I've ever seen. Quite a rare car. Talking of rare cars down at the Haynes Museum, this is 27ALO, another Elva. This one is an Elva Courier from May of 1958. Clearly race prepared, some beefy looking mini light wheels on this particular car. Back to Armstrong-Siddeley's again, and this is the Star Sapphire, the revised version of the previous Sapphire model with the lower radiator grille, where the bonnet continues all the way to the front, whereas on the early car it butted up behind the top of the radiator. 406 NEH, that gives the game away that this is a Bristol 406. Apparently this one's not been taxed since 2012, so presumably it's stuck, stashed away somewhere in the garage. This one dates to 1960. I think around 100 of these were made, last of the 6-cylinder Bristols, I think. Down to Gaydon in the reserve collection again, and there's this gargantuan Daimler. This is a Daimler DE36 Green Goddess, and it dates to 1950. Now to the open air and a classic car show, I think it was last year, LTB 948, we are told is a Humber Super Sniper Mark II, drophead by Tickford, dating to 1949. What a wonderful car that is. You don't see many of the saloons, let alone the drophead versions of these mighty Humbers. Now here's an oddball one. This was a one-off car built by the factory. This is a Triumph Vitesse, a coupe with the Herald Coupe roof on it. This, I think, went to France when it was new, hence the yellow headlight bulbs. The Herald Coupe had two different types of roof, the early ribbed version, as you can see here, and also a smooth roof on the slightly later cars. And staying with Triumph, we've got this 1964 GTR4. Now, is this the Dove or the Dove? I've seen it with and without the accent, so if anyone knows for sure, please let me know. And here is the rear three-quarter view of the same car, seen at the Cholmondeley Castle Classic Car Show, CPD 333B. But yes, is it Dove or Dove? Either way, very handsome car, very practical, but no longer a convertible. Which would you prefer, open or closed top? XWO 300J, this is the Leyland Crompton Electricar of 1970. There's nothing new in electric cars, people have dabbled with them since the very early days of motoring, probably with more success in recent times, but yeah, there's not a new thing trying to power cars by electricity. And here, this was at the 2022 NEC Classic Car Show, an incredible lofty woodie based on the Riley RM 1.5 litre car. But yeah, it was obviously designed with wearing hats in mind, but what a great looking car that is, 4-door woodie. Back down to Malvern a few years ago, in mid-2000s, LDD 593 is a Jowett Javelin. Really nice, quite an advanced car for their day. You could have the standard or the deluxe version, and dashboards varied slightly depending on which one you chose, but yeah, really advanced car. Talking of advanced and Swiss British cars, we've got MHY 424, that's a Bristol 401, 2-litre powered car, dating to 1950. Looks quite Italian almost, I think, from that particular angle. Many years ago we lived around the corner from someone who was very much into his Rochdales, and Neil let me take some photos of his cars. We've got a silver Rochdale Olympic in pieces on the left hand side, and the two photos of the white car, that is a Rochdale Riviera. The only one of those I've ever seen, a really unusual, scarce British car, even back in the day. And this is a drop-head version of the good old Sunbeam Talbot 90. What a stunning car that is. Carrying on with these oddball British cars, we've got Rob 430 down at the Gaydon Museum, and this was a proposal for a two-door convertible version of the Austin A30, which obviously came to nothing, but look how deep the sills are, or rather how shallow the doors are, just to try and restore some strength into the car's body shell once the roof had been cut off. Really neat little car. Talking of neat little cars, this is down at Bewley, and this is a Reliant Regal Mark 1. Very similar to the Bond, a rival to the Bond in fact that we've already seen, the Bond minicar versus Reliant Regal. Somewhat low and mean looking, we have PW0899F. This is a Marcos, the 1600 GT. What do we have here? It is a Sebring Sprite. So you take an Austin Healey Sprite, there's AH on the hubcaps, that's the giveaway, and you add various pieces of fiberglass bodywork to your car, transforming the look of it. So it's got a moulded in roof, completely different windscreen arrangement, the bonnet's different, and the back end, it looks very similar from this angle. Anyway, SNX36, back to Road Rovers. This, we've had the Series 2 already prototype. This is the Series 1 Road Rover prototype. A really interesting car. And like I said before, eventually this would morph into what became the Range Rover. Good old Daimler here, another V8 Majestic Major on a C-plate, so that's 1965 down at Malvern. Beautiful car, those things went like a rocket, even though they look fairly stately with that 4.5 litre all-alloy V8 engine. They did move when they had to. Two photos now of classic GTMs. These were originally the Cox GTM mini-based, they had a mini subframe in the back. You can just about see the carburetors on this particular car poking through the rear hatch there, the bonnet if you like. This one in the livery of Car and Car Conversions magazine, who remembers that? And here we've got a standard road going car. It was in one of these the first time that I travelled over 100 miles an hour. My uncle built one of these up in the 1970s with a Cooper S engine in the back. Went very, very well indeed. It was very light, and sadly it was written off by an errant driver in a Vauxhall Carlton of all things. Drove into the back of it and wrote it off. Here we have NGN2. This is a rare Austin. This is an Austin Princess Vanden Plas, the A135 series car. So many, many smaller Austins have survived, but not so many of these big limousines. Still plenty of these obscure British cars, and here we have the Alvis TC21/100 Grey Lady, the sporty version of the Alvis TC21. Giveaways include those wire-spoked wheels and the air intakes on top of the bonnet. This was designed to be a 100-mile-an-hour car. Next up, we've had a few standards already, and this is the Vanguard Phase 3 Sportsman, the sporty version of the range, if you like. Very, very rare to see these cars now. From the front, it looks a bit similar to the MG Magnet, the Farina Magnet, I think. Yeah, you hardly ever see these. This was in about 2006. Now to Gaydon again, the Motor Museum there, HFY 330. This is the Marauder Tourer from 1951. Only about 15 of these were built in all, Rover based. If you look along the side you can see hints of Rover P4 in the styling on this particular car, and the hubcaps as well. Look very similar to Rover P4 wheels and hubcaps in fact. Quite a stylish machine. I remember seeing one on the road years ago driving past, but that was the only time. It may well have been this car, because if 15 were built, I wonder how many survive now. Probably not very many at all. Okay, back down to Malvern, another Bond HYM 811C. This is a 1296cc powered car, so that engine either from the Mark III Spitfire or more likely the Herald 1360, and it dates to November of 1965. And again, you can see the Triumph Herald source door there. FOU 653, a big old Armstrong-Siddeley. We had the Whitley Saloon before, and this is the Hurricane, the two-door Tourer version. Very swish indeed. Rear hinge doors, of course. There's some cracking photos of one of these on a Continental tour on the main Old Classic Car website, if you find yourself over there. Now, back to Malvern. We've got 679 NBJ. That is a Scootacar, a rival to the Peel P50 that we saw earlier. What an amazing little car that is. Another obscure British car now, LXO 296, again at Malvern in about 2006 or 7. This is the Daimler DB18 Empress, and it was built in 1950. I think we caught a glimpse of this one before on the Alvis Owners Club stand at the NEC, LNU 743, a very interesting woody-bodied car. Not quite sure what the story is with this particular car. Did it start out as a saloon and someone's modified it in recent times, or was it like that from day one? If you know any more, let me know. Another little Barclay here, 980DA with an array of motoring badges on the front there. Looks like a lot of fun. I think these were Villiers powered, if I remember correctly. If you've got any experience of these less well-known British cars, let me know please in the comments. Back to the end, Malvern and Bond Estate. This is the only one of these I've ever seen. This one, I think I did include it in a collection of estate car photos quite a while ago, but it's such a rare car, I thought I had to include it here too. There's a GT6 alongside, its cousin if you like, very similar running gear. Now this is a handsome machine, I do like this, 979XVB, that's a Graber-bodied Alvis Coupe, so that'll be the TD21 base car of 1958. What a stunning car that is. Now we had the AC Ace earlier, seen at Prescott Hill Climb, and this 200 TPJ is the fastback fixed head AC Ace Seeker. A stunning car, very, very nice. This was at an evening meet a few years back now. Glorious car. I think the owner's still got it, but I haven't seen it out and about for a little while. Talking of ACs, here's another one, 3ENC. That is the AC Greyhound. We had a rare A40 before, the A40 Dorset, and this is a drop head version of the Austin A40 Dorset or the Devon. Were these ever sold in this country, or has this been brought in from Australia or somewhere like that? I'm not sure that these were ever sold here, so if you could let me know. I mean, I had a Devon years ago, but anyway, KPK 75, this is an incredible looking car. This is an Invicta Black Prince. It was in very original condition when it used to pop up at classic car shows in the 2000s, but I haven't seen it for quite a while. I've got a feeling it may have been restored since this photo was taken, but if you know more about this one, let me know. Now the good old London Taxi. This is an original Austin car. It's on a D plate, a 1966. You can see the Austin badge on the bonnet and just about make out the little rear lights that were just perched on the top corners of the back wings. Very different to the later cars that you tended to see more recently, but that's an original Austin. Back to Bristol's, and this time a Bristol 403. Very nice indeed too. Okay, over to the Armstrong-Siddeley stand, 988 MBH. Now we saw a 236 Sapphire Saloon before, and apparently this is the 234, so 4-cylinder, Sapphire Sports Special. Is this a one-off that someone's made, or was this actually a production car? Answers on the postcard, please. I did like this one. This was at East Anglia Transport Museum, and again there's a video all about that. This is the Harding Consort Invalid Carriage, dating to 1961. It looks a lot older than that. Maybe it's those spoked wheels, but yep, 1961, this invalid carriage. What an oddball machine that is. And here we have an estate conversion of the Rover P6, the 3.5 litre V8 car. This was undertaken by FLM Panelcraft, if memory serves, the Astora, I think they call those. There was a couple of those at the NEC this year. That's where this photo was taken, 2022. And here another example of the GTR 4A with the handy badge on the front there, just to remind everyone that that's what you're looking at. Very swish indeed. Now, over at Sywell a few years ago, Pistons and Props I think the event was, we saw DWS 97. This is a Sebring Sprite, which had an alley body put on it, and it became the WSM Sprite, a one-off car. This is in the Llangollen Motor Museum. This is a real oddball one-off car that an enterprising engineer built for himself. Douglas Hartley Special is the name of this little car. I hope to revisit this museum one day and we'll have a proper look at that in a bit more detail. Here we go. This is a Riley, the Riley Pathfinder. They weren't a huge success back in the day, the 2.5 litre engine in these, and it replaced the larger engined RM series that came before. Yeah, very distinctive, nice looking car I think. Those hubcaps are very distinctive as well. There's an Austin 10-4 alongside it. And here we have an Abbott-bodied Bentley RYX21, and this is a Bentley R-Type. Now originally that registration, I've seen photos of that on a Comma Q4 lorry, and now that registration is on the 1950 Daimler 2.5 V8, so maybe it just follows the owner around as he or her changes their mind on cars. And to round out this collection of oddball cars, we've got 68 ELK. That's a Rover P3 based car, Graber body on this particular car. Really interesting. Actually, that isn't quite the last photograph. I have added a couple more in. Here, 672 UYW. That's a Pininfarina-bodied version of Jaguar's XK120 from 1950. This was restored by a well-known Jaguar specialist just a few years ago. But do you prefer that to the XK120? And this is the last car in this particular collection of photographs. It's a Daimler OCY42 as the registration at the Tatton Park Classic Car Show, and this is a 1956 Daimler 104 Sportsman. Looks a bit like a Conquest from the front, but a very distinctive rear roofline. And that completes this collection of photographs of lesser spotted Brits, British cars of the 40s, 50s and 60s that you don't tend to see all that often. Thank you very much for watching. Please have a look around the rest of the channel while you're here, and there'll be more videos about classic cars and so on very, very soon. So bye for now.